Good morning, ladies. It's Mr. O'Sullivan. Today we're going to be starting a new unit, lesson Unit 5, where we're going to be doing systems of equations. This is actually a very fun unit. It's a lot of algebra, it's a lot of manipulation, and it's a lot of problem solving. So as long as you know how to distribute and solve an equation, this unit will be a breeze. So let's begin. Today's learning target is I can solve a systems of equations by using substitution. Our warm-up today is going to be evaluate these two questions. So number one, if f of x is equal to 3x minus 4, then evaluate f of negative 5. So ladies, what that means is everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a negative 5. So one thing I want to caution you is that whenever you plug in a number, you need to wrap that number in parentheses. So when I plug in my negative 5, I need to put that negative 5 in parentheses, just like I did right here. So I now have 3 times negative 5 minus 4. And here's what I'm going to ask you. I'm actually going to ask you to just type this in your calculator and tell me what you get. Well, if I do it by hand, I get 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And then I do negative 15, take away 4, and I get negative 19. So negative 19 is my final answer. Here it says 2. Evaluate 4x plus 6x squared when x equals 2. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a 2. And again, I would just ask you to type this in your calculator. Well, if I do it by hand, I get 8. And then I do 6 times 4 because 2 squared is 4. 6 times 4 is 24. And then 8 plus 24 is 32. And that's your final answer. So describe the process that you used to evaluate both the examples above. So when we did these examples, what is it that we were doing? Well, we were actually just doing the method of substitution. We were substituting our x values by plugging in. And that's how we would get our final answer. Okay, so solving by substitution. Equals may always substitute for equals. So that means whenever you have y equals and y equals, or x equals and x equals, just set them equal to each other. What is the answer to a system of equations? Well, if you look, this is an example of a system of equations. I got a y value, and I got an x value. So you're actually going to have two answers. An x value and a y value. So your solution is going to be a point where your two functions intersect. So now let's make sure that you find an answer for all variables in the problem. So if you have an x and a y, you got to tell me an x value and a y value, just so we're on the same page. You're not going to get it correct if you don't have both. So let's look at our first procedure or our model problem. Here are the steps for solving a system of equations by using substitution. Here's our question. Solve the following system. Y equals 2x minus 1. And then 3x plus 2y equals 26. So step 1 says isolate one of the variables, isolate your x or your y. So you basically want it to be in the form of y equals or x equals. So you want the y by itself or the x by itself. So if we look at this equation or our system, we can see that we actually do have an equation by itself. I mean a y by itself. Y is equal to 2x minus 1. Number 2, substitute the isolated expression from step 1 into your other equation. The resulting equation should have only one variable, just an x or a y. So if you look right here, what I did was I have my 3x plus 2y equals 26. everywhere I see a y, I substituted a 2x minus 1. And then what we did was we distributed our 2 to our 2x minus 1, and we got 3x plus 4x minus 2. So we did our substitution and we simplified. Now step 3 says solve your new equation for x or y. So if you look at this equation, we need to combine our like terms. So we basically have to do our P, C, V, N, A. Parentheses are done because we got rid of them in this step. Now we're going to combine our like terms and do 3x plus 4x. 3x plus 4x is 7x. And then we get 7x minus 2 equals 26. So to ask ourselves, are all of our x's on one side? Yes, they are. Are all of our numbers on the other side? Nope, so we have to get rid of our minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides of our equation. When I add 2 to 26, I get 28. And then I divide by my 7 to get x equals 4. So this is part of your final answer. Step 4 says substitute the value you just found into either one of your equations. You can pick either one. I typically pick the one that's less busy, so in this case my y equals 2x minus 1. So I always rewrite it. We know x is 4, so everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a 4. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 1 is 7. So my final answer is x equals 4, y equals 7. On delta math, it's going to ask that you write it as an ordered pair. So make sure that you remember x comes first, y comes second. Let's go ahead and do 2 different examples. Solve each of the following systems of equations by using substitution. So remember, whenever it's y equals 2x plus 5, y equals negative 3x minus 10, we just set them equal to each other. So I have a y equals. So I'm just going to write a quick note, just set equal to each other. So I have 2x plus 5 equals negative 3x minus 10. If I do my P, C, V, N, A, I don't have any parentheses. Can't combine a 2x and a 5. Can't combine a negative 3x and a negative 10. Are all my x's on one side? Nope, because I have an x here and an x here. I like to put my x's on the left-hand side of my equation. So I have to ask myself, how do I get rid of a minus 3x? I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I then get 5x plus 5 equals negative 10. All my x's are on the left-hand side. I like what we're doing so far. My next step, are all my numbers on the right-hand side? They aren't, because if you look, I have a 5 on my left and a negative 10 on my right. So I have to ask myself, how do I get rid of that positive 5? I subtract 5. So I get 5x equals negative 15. Now I have to ask myself, how do I get rid of that multiply by 5? I divide by 5. So I get x equals negative 3. But if you look, I'm not done. I just have x equals negative 3. I need a y value now. What's nice is I can plug it into either equation. I'm going to plug it into both, actually, just to show you that I'll still get the same answer. So I have 2 equations. I have my y equals 2x plus 5, and my y equals negative 3x minus 10. So I'm going to plug in my negative 3 into the 2x plus 5. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a negative 3. Two times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 5 is 1. Negative 1, sorry. And that's your final answer. I'm going to do the exact same procedure on my negative 3x minus 10 just to show you that you can do either. Everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a negative 2. I get negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. And then I get 6 minus 10. One second. Ooh, I made a hiccup. I'm supposed to substitute a -3, not a -2. So when I now do -3 times -3, I get +9, and 9 minus 10 is -1. So if you look, I still get a y equals -1. So my final answer is x equals -3 and y equals -1, or -3, -1. That's your final answer. Let's go on to our next example. I have 4x minus 2y equals 16, and y equals -5x plus 13. So if I look, one of my equations is already in the form y equals. So how I approach is, that's the equation I'm going to be substituting. So I write my original equation, for x minus 2y equals 16, and everywhere I see a y, I'm going to substitute my -5x plus 13. Now that I have my -5x plus 13 substituted, I'm now going to distribute my -2 to each term on the inside. So I now have 4x, -2 times -5 is +10x, -2 times a +13 is a -26, and that's all equal to 16. I now combine my like terms of 4x and 10x. 4x and 10x is going to give me a 14x, sorry. And I have 14x minus 26 equals 16. Now I have to ask myself, how do I get rid of my 26? I add 26. Get 14x equals 16 plus 26 is 42. And then I get rid of my 14 by dividing by 14. So I get x equals 3. Now that I have my x value, I want to find my y value. So I'm going to pick my favorite equation. And my favorite equation is the one that's the less busy one. So I actually like this one, my -5x plus 13. Because y is on one side, -5x plus 13 is on the other. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 3. So I have y equals -5x plus 13. I'm going to plug in a 3 for x. -5 times 3 is 15. -15 plus 13. -15 plus 13 is -2. So my final answer is y equals -2, x equals 3. But if we write it as an ordered pair, it would be 3, -2. And that's it. Make sure you finish this edpuzzle and you do your delta math. Have a great day, ladies.